welcome to our annual Spring Speaker Series for Textile Design. We are very happy to have you with us today, and I'm very excited to be able to welcome you and to also introduce our fabulous speakers. So I'm Marsha Weiss. I'm the Director of the Textile Design Programs at Thomas Jefferson University, formerly Philadelphia University, and formerly Philadelphia Textile. So welcome and welcome back. It is our pleasure today to introduce Amanda Hedrick and Laura Levinson from Valdese Weavers. Laura is the Chief Creative Officer and Amanda is the Design Director and also an alum from O2, from Textile Design. So with that, Laura and Amanda, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you very much for having us. I'm going to share my screen. I'm Laura, and this is Amanda. Well, thanks again for having us. I'm Laura Levinson. I'm the Chief Creative Officer for Valdese Weavers. I've been here for 31 short years, and I came out of an Bachelor's of Environmental Design from NC State University, and I started working at Valdese Weavers for 3 years, and then went back to Rhode Island School of Design for a 2-year program for a master's degree in textile design. Graduated in '95 and went back to work for Valdese Weavers in their New York office for about 7 years, working side by side with their sales agents, and then started managing more and more down at the mill, and eventually relocated back down to North Carolina in 2001. And with me today is Amanda Hedrick. I think it's great for someone to be online that can help answer some of your questions. All of our designers report to Amanda, so she has day-to-day management over that area. So Amanda, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yes, so hi, I'm Amanda Hedrick. I grew up in North Carolina where Valdese Weavers is located, but decided to go to, at that time, my freshman year, it was Philadelphia College of Textiles and Science. And then from my sophomore year on, it was Philadelphia University. And I think I'm one of the few that I chose a major, stayed with my major, and graduated with the same major of textile design, and then found a job in that degree as well, which I know is sometimes unusual. But it was just a really good fit, and especially at Philly U. I played soccer when I was at school as well, so I went a little bit longer. So I went 4.5 years and graduated in '02. And when I would come home from school, I would intern at Valdese Weavers a couple summers, and really loved the experience, and always thought I would move to New York and get a job, but then just loved this company so much, and it was just a really good fit. So I luckily was offered a position, and I have been here ever since. So I'm starting my 19th year with Valdese Weavers. So it's a great place to work, and as you will see in Laura's presentation, a very diverse textile mill.
What we want to show you today is we want to show you a little bit about our company, but more importantly, try to describe what it's like to be a designer at our company and in home furnishings in general. Just a quick overview of our toolbox, and these are all the different things that designers use when they're making fabrics for the upholstery market. We have about 35 people in our department. We have over 200,000 archived patterns that we can weave at any point. We launch about 5,000 every year. That includes specials for customers, as well as new patterns that we launch to sell in the form of a line, is what we call it. We have over 3,000 different filling yarn SKUs, over 200 different warps, and of that, there's 75 different yarn types or fiber types. And then we also have a finishing plant where we have over 250 finishes, whether it's a topical finish or an immersion finish, and we'll show you a little bit about that as well. So I thought we'd start with the design process, so that as a designer is coming into work, this is what they do and how they start a project. They need to know the end use first. Is this going in a public space or residential interior? They need to know a little bit about the price. Sometimes our customers will give us that information, and sometimes we do have to guess. They need to know the style direction. Is the work they were doing for a modern environment, transitional environment, classical or traditional environment, or global? What kind of colors do they need? And as you know, that then dictates what kind of yarns you can use. Most of our customers describe fabrics as either plush or textural, refined or dry or shiny. They're not very technical in their terminology, so we kind of refine it to those words. And then what kind of finish? Do they need it to be soft or distressed looking, sort of vintage? Or the newest growing trend we're seeing is, does it need performance? And that was part of the title of our presentation, because we do want to share with you where the market's going. So on the contract side, these are public spaces. And the designers of this area have to think of, is this going into a hotel interior, sort of the lobby or room setting, or is it going into a really hip new restaurant that might have banquet seating or lobby seating? We also, they think through healthcare environments, whether it's a hospital room, whether it's task chairs, whether it's the draperies that separate rooms. All of these are fabric components that are things that we design and manufacture. On the residential side, they think through several main interior spaces. There's sort of this global look on the left. It's my left, at least on screen. There's sort of a warehouse, rustic, middle image, and then transitionals on the right, which mixes a little bit of contemporary with a little bit of traditional. We also have this modern farmhouse look. I don't know if anybody has ever followed Chip or Joanna Gaines, but they've started this great movement with natural fabrics and interiors, and then a very traditional interior on the right with sort of a traditional print, traditional furniture. And where do we look for inspiration? So probably a lot like you, we look at blogs, we follow fashion. We belong to Fashion Snoops is the website we use. We look at art and cultural influences as well as shelter magazines. And the mood board on the right is something that we would share with customers, where we've pulled tear sheets and matched our fabrics up to them, whether it's color or pattern or texture. But all the fabric swatches are ours. And this is a display out of one of our shows where we wanted to teach the customer where we got our inspiration from and how we interpreted it. We usually start with an image or a piece of artwork. We have over 25,000 items in our archive. I believe you've got one as well at school. But what we use are, these are antique documents. If it's over 40 years old, it's considered vintage. And a lot of these antique pieces come out of Europe where mills have closed, or they could be things we've bought off eBay, or people who bring them to us in portfolios to review. But we always have something that we start with as an idea. On the studio art side, we do have studios coming in year round, and these are surface designers largely. They come from the UK, Como, Italy, France, Israel, Korea, all over the world, and they bring to us portfolios of anywhere from 200 to 400 pieces of art, and we'll look at all of them, and out of that pick maybe 2 to 5 that we purchase and then turn into a Jacquard design. Some of these are hand painted, but more and more, most of these are CAD images where they've scanned things in and put them through different iterations. And it really helps us because it's already skipped that editing stage and we can go straight into fabric development. So again, this is part of our 25,000 item archive. We also use these antique swatch books. These are very old antique books from Europe. And as they would make fabrics in the mills, they would put swatches in these books of their first strike-offs. And while you don't have a whole repeat there, we would take an element and then start playing with it in CAD to create either a full paisley or we might take the edge of that one sort of paprika orange swatch and make a stripe out of it. But again, these are just idea starters for us in working with fabrics. We do copyright everything we do. So we try to have an original document that we can pull if needed, if we ever have an infringement. So our next step is to create a collection or a line. And we put out different lines at different times during the year for different markets. So we might do a collection just for healthcare, or a collection just for hotel interiors. On the residential side, we'll do a collection twice a year that's timed around the furniture market in High Point. And so this is an example of one here where we have all of the swatches on the wall. And this is sort of our tracking mechanism. It also allows us to see, do we have enough diversity in the collection, enough feature patterns for pillows, enough planes for sofas, and small scale items for chair patterns. Amanda took a couple of quick snapshots of our designer offices for us to show you. We just kind of wanted you to be able to see what it actually looks like and feels like to be a designer in the home furnishings or contract business. They all have EAT systems and Photoshop that they use. All of our fabrics are barcoded throughout the mill, so we can look in our system and figure out where our fabric is, whether it's in weaving, or it's in finishing, or it's on a buggy in transportation, in transport back to the mill. But all the designers keep their own swatches on their walls so they can watch their fabrics through the development process. If anything fails in the quality checks, then they have to start over and rework it. The designer on the left just started with us. That's why she's got probably the neatest office of anyone, because she's got 2 years with us and hasn't accumulated as much as the others. These are 2 other offices. The one on the left has a lot of color information up on her wall, and you can see down sort of on her floor, this is her pile of sketches that she's getting ready to work with. So there's probably at any given time 20 different fabrics that a designer is juggling, plus about 20 different custom projects for customers. So it's not unusual to have at any given time 40 different things that you're having to manage. Does that sound correct, Amanda?
Yes.
And then on the right is one of our contract designers. She actually joined us from RISD and is one of our now design manager, but she, most designers have 2 different screens they work off of. On the contract side, they keep a lot of rolls of fabric because we always have to test things on the wall or in a vertical arrangement. And then she also prefers a stand-up desk, but you can kind of see that everybody has their own sort of style and their own little space where they can work pretty quietly. Most of us tend to shut our doors and work because it's highly technical work, as you know. We thought we'd also share with you how we actually interpret artwork. This was kind of a surprise for me coming out of school, because I was used to creating my own art, creating my own weaves, doing my own weaving. And when you're designing, you're a little bit removed from that because the volume we have to put through is just so great. So the image, Amanda, is that your left?
Yes. Yes.
So on your left, you see this piece of artwork, and it's got many shades of blue, several teals, and a white ground. And in Jacquard weaving, as you probably know, but the more layers you have, the more yarn you're going to have in the fabric, and the more the cost is going to be much higher. So most of the times it's cost prohibitive to just recreate an image. So we'll show you in the next slide where the designer has taken a few shortcuts. They've got a white layer in the ground, they've got a navy blue layer in the animals, and then they're running a teal layer and some of the other background motifs. But then there's another third color here, and they've done that by mixing these 2 layers to get your third color. So there's a lot of different tricks and a lot of mathematics, as you know, that go into Jacquard weaving. Every designer, most every designer also weaves color blankets, and we'll show you a blanket on a loom in a minute. But here they're taking color direction that our merchandising team puts together, they're weaving different samples. So the same cards are used, or the same weave file, to weave all of these different colors. All of our fabrics are tagged with numbering systems. And again, we can see even the blankets moving through the mill. But here you can see multiple different colorways, and you can kind of see how they've ombreed in and layered in some of the color. And that's another trick to getting more color into a fabric without adding cost. Another different type of pattern. This is more of a modern interior. I'm not sure if you've heard of Kelly Wersler, but she's pretty trending right now in the interior design area. You're seeing a lot of these brush marks. Here it is as wallpaper. Here it is as I think that's a print on a fabric. This blue and white and gold is a piece of artwork that we purchased. So this would be sort of the mood board that creates the environment we want to use this fabric in. And that helps the designer with a little bit of the language of how to select weaves, which yarns to use. Here you'll see the artwork on the left, and then you'll see the interpretation on the right. And here they've chosen to use a solid yarn for the ground, this white area, which is now black. And then they've taken these brush marks that are watercolor and made them out of one layer. And then this dry brush that you see running on top of it, they've done with a different yarn. And the yarn's actually heathered, and they've done it with a couple of yarns mixed together. So you get this sort of rougher looking texture on top of these two other colors. And then they brought the white back in a very small amount just to highlight it there. Color options for this design, because it's a modern design, the colors tend to be a little more on the neutral side. This rust is a little pop of color and the gold overlay, but modern interiors tend to be a little softer, not as colorful as the traditional ones. So here you can see a couple of the swatches that we actually used to sell from with the artwork. Another example is this beautiful marbled watercolor sketch. So I'm sure this was made with actual dyes or watercolor on paper. And if it was a print, you could get every single color in, but as a woven, we have to really economize our yarn that we're using. So this designer simplified it down to a couple of shades. I think this is a 4-layer design. And then she's used the warp to create the overlay or the masked area. You can see on here a little bit of an up close to understand the warp obviously is going in the vertical direction. And you can see all these different yarns mixing to make the green. And then again here, the brown. So they've used a light layer, a green layer, and a brown layer. And then they've done a lot of mixing of everything. And they'll use a lot of the different functions on EAT to pixelate areas and make it look where it's changing colors. Again, a little bit more of a modern interior. Here they've got the white warp on 2 swatches, and here's the black warp making the circles on top. And then you can see the different marbled effects you get by running just different colors and color trials. After we make fabrics, we then have to color them. And looking at this, this is a color inspiration board for terracotta. This is coming out of our contract area. And what this really helps us do is define how to use the color. So here we're looking at terracotta used with grays or a wine burgundy shade. There's some really exciting introductions of a blue violet mixed with terracotta. So this would be a color board for this palette that would be inspiration for designers. And then here's one for an evergreen palette where we've got different shades of green, yellow greens, blue greens, all mixed with beautiful neutrals. And then a pop of this citrus color that kind of comes in and gives you an accent shade. But we're always looking for what the language of color, how to use the combinations. Instead of just using it as a solid, it really helps if we sort of spell it out for designers. And then this is the physical color process. So the designer, everyone has a set of these, we call them yarn tabs. They're just windings of every yarn color that we have in our library. And at first they take the fabric they're working on, they lay out the colors that are in it. So the ground has this white and the off-white running in the background. Then there's a gray for part of the circle and sort of this salmon color for the other part. And so they'll start pulling out tabs to see, well, we could change the gray to blue and we could change the white to sort of the citron yellow. Very similar to what you would do in school. It's just a little more planned out because then you have to then enter it into the computer and you send it off and then you get it back. So it's not a real tangible, it's not an immediate gratification process, but it's one that everybody really loves to work on. We thought we'd share with you some of our sales analysis just to show you how we look at color. We've had a long history working with blues and these grays over the last couple of years, but we're finally seeing a little bit of a shift from 2019 to 2020. We're selling a few less of the blue colors and gray, and we're starting to see a trend now with greens picking up, browns, and teals. So it's a really interesting time because gray is so prominent everywhere, but at the very high end, you'll start seeing the blues, the browns, and they'll start trickling in over the next year or two and probably overtake the grays eventually. Gray will stay around at the lifestyle retailers like Restoration and Crate and Barrel. It'll end up going down to Rooms to Go and Ashley Furniture and places like that. And that's typically how we see a trend working. A lot of these shades are accent colors. That's why they're so small. Very few people have this amount of color in their homes. A lot of it's more pillow colors, drapery colors, things like that. After we make our fabric, we color it, then we have to display it to sell. And historically, we've had 6 different showrooms in this one space in High Point. And we would redo the lobby every single time. So this is our Circa brand, which is our upper end brand, a little more traditional, as you can see by the furniture and the colors. And then this was our Dicey brand. This is a little more of a commercial product. So we have concrete floors and these neutral colored chairs, all are different fabrics that we show. And then we hang yard cuts for customers to come by and pick. But this past year, we moved to a new space because we wanted to be near the furniture showrooms down in High Point. So we just renovated this really large white showroom. Every room off of this long grand hall houses a different collection of product. Here you can see one on the left. We're training our reps here, obviously with masks on, but we can show fabric from almost floor to ceiling, so we can show really large cuts to our customers. We have a really large area where we entertain customers, and then we have a hospitality area where we can do seminars or CEU classes for up to 40 people. So it's a great new space for us. It's a different way to show fabric, and we've yet to really kick it off since 2020 has kind of been an odd year. We thought we'd share with you a couple of our customers. You'll never see our name on furniture in the industry, so we're pretty much anonymous, but we do sell through these customers. So Anthropologie, Restoration, Pottery Barn, Serena and Lily, Crate and Barrel on the residential side, and then contract customers such as Design Tex and Herman Miller on the contract side. So they'll put their name on the product and it'll become their fabric. And with all of these customers, they don't share fabric, so they each have to have their own collection. But it originates from us, and we just ship it to their manufacturer, who then puts their name on it, if that makes sense. We thought we would touch quickly on manufacturing, just to give you a little bit of a view into our facilities. Obviously, you know the textile process from your studies in school, but we start with fiber. We do make some yarn, we'll show you that. We do have a dye house where we do dyeing. We create large warps. We have about 150 looms, and then one finishing plant just for finishing. and our own testing lab. The raw materials we use, which are common in all upholstery, are natural, synthetic, and recycled. All have different characteristics, and designers kind of use this as a checklist of what type of yarn they want to put into a fabric. We do globally source our yarns now, so we do have a whole department that just brings yarn in from around the world. And we have filament yarns, spun yarns, and novelty yarns. We do make a lot of the novelty yarns in-house, but this is the area that gives you the most texture and surface interest. Filament, some of these are stronger yarns, and then spun yarns are definitely our decorative yarns. On the dyeing side, it's very similar to how you would dye something on at home on your stove or in a lab at school. It's just scaled up significantly. So this is a 300-pound lot of yarn, and it goes down into these dye baths that go underground, and the chemicals are fed into them and the hot water, and they come out a color, and then they're putting into these drying racks where they're dried. We have a lab where we test colors. Here we're taking these are sales women from Knoll Textiles that are going through a Textiles 101 class, where we're trying to teach them sort of the art of dyeing, and they each dye a small sock, a woven or knitted sock, just to sort of see how the color gets into the fabric. We also do extrusion, and so we have these barrels of chips that are just tiny plastic chips that get melted down. This is new equipment we brought on board about 4 years ago, but they're melted and then they're stretched into yarn, and it creates a really thin yarn that we can then make other yarns out of. It's a pretty simple process, but it runs 3 shifts a day, just like the rest of our operation. This is warping on a large scale. So down at the bottom, you can see all the cones that are on these stands. And so that's where they're bringing all the yarn into one point where they're making these warps, and then we dye them. After we dye them, we call it slashing, where we take all of these different colors and pull them through to make one large warp beam. And then we have to use forklifts to move all these around. And then this is a blanket warp. So a designer, we've got blankets for every yarn type we have, where we can see 9 to 11 colors across the loom and run one filling yarn across it. On the weaving side, we have about 150 looms. They're coming from different places. Parts of them are from Germany. The heads are from Italy. We do run them 3 shifts a day, 5 to 6 days a week. And we have about 700 employees, and probably 600 of those work out in the factory. We inspect every fabric, we measure the repeats. The computer tells the folks what the repeat size should be. They're looking for defects on the fabric too. Sometimes you get grease or oil on the fabric from these machines because they're such large operations. And then our finishing plant. This is basically like you put it in your washer and dryer, to really simplify. But these are Italian finishing machines that twist the fabric, put them through immersion baths, and then dry them, and then they lap them in these buggies, and then we re-roll them before shipping. But in this factory, the fabric comes in one end, it goes through finishing, and then it goes out the other end and gets delivered. So we just wanted to highlight durability really fast. Durability is just the strength of the fabric, and it's part of the designer's job to make sure their fabric passes this testing. It's not everyone's favorite part because it can get really frustrating if it fails, because you have to fix it over and sometimes over again. Abrasion is one of the hardest tests to pass. This is where a machine rubs a fabric, and it simulates someone sitting on a sofa, standing up, sitting down, standing up. For residential, we like to be around 30,000 times that someone sits and stands. But on the contract side, we really need to be 50,000 or higher. This is the lab. Looks a little junky, but here we're cutting swatches and measuring repeats. So once again, we've got to make sure that the computer matches the fabric so that we have a quality fabric we can reproduce. These are the Weizenbeek machines that clamp down and do the rubbing. And then this over here on the right is where we've sewn seams together, like you would sew a pillow together. And then there's this rubber wheel that sort of drops down on it to make sure the integrity of the seam is good. We also test for pilling. These machines have circular screens on them, and they just rub in a circular direction. We're trying to see if our fabrics fuzz up at all after usage. And then stain resistance. It's something new that we're testing for and something we can add onto fabrics. Everybody's wanting it because people are living a more casual lifestyle. Their living rooms are gone, and it's now just open living environments. People have dogs, people drink wine, people have kids. So there's a lot we're doing to make sure our fabrics are high performance. Most can be cleaned with soap and water, but we're also engineering some to be cleaned with a bleach and water solution. You spray it on and you kind of let it dry and then wipe it off. This is not kind of like the contract interior. So those two markets are merging just a little bit. We also look at UV protection. This is basically like sunscreen when you go outside, but it's for your fabric. We can put it in the dyeing process. We can put it in the extrusion process. And it really depends on where the furniture is going to sit and what color it is. I just threw this in here because I thought it was really fascinating that yellow is the first color to break down when it's outside in the sunlight, then purple, then green, then brown. Any blue that has yellow in it, any red with yellow in it, and any dark, deep grays with yellow. So we have a lot of trouble with some of those yarns. Then we have to go outside and get solution dyed yarns where the color is made into the yarn versus us putting it on through a dye bath. And last, we just wanted to walk through some of the trends for this year and next year, just to kind of share where we are. One of the big things that people are talking about that we're addressing is this new idea of sustainable fabric. We have yarns and warp yarns and fill yarns that are recycled. They come from recycled polyester. We also have some recycled cotton yarns as well. They come from old t-shirts. The hard part with that is that they're not necessarily the exact same yarn every time because it depends on how many of what color t-shirt gets recycled, but they're very popular and give us a great look. Brand new, and this is an area Amanda's been working on, has been taking ocean waste or bottles out of the ocean, and they've been recycling those into yarns. And so we've just launched our first collection, and that's going to be in stores, I believe, in March through Our House Furniture. So Amanda just wrapped that up, and we've got several more in the works as well. And then on the contract side, that area is really interested in landfill and new technologies that will help fabric biodegrade. And so there's a component to the yarn for this Cyclo project where it degrades over a short amount of time out in these landfills. So these are three areas that we're addressing, and we're starting to see it, grow some legs. It's taken a while. We've always had recycled yarn for at least 15 years, but these newer areas are really interesting. On the color side, we've got a few new colors we thought we'd just give you a sneak peek of. This baked clay or desert tone is sort of a dusty apricot shade. You can see at the bottom of your screen, these are our actual yarns that we've dyed in our dye house. So these are all brand new shades. The designer just got these and they'll start using them. And we hope to launch these next quarter. We have two new greens we're coming out with in response to sort of the trends we were showing earlier. These are our foliage greens. These are yellow green on the right, and then there's this really beautiful blue green on the left. And then one more, this is the herbal palette. So these are more of a neutral type green, sort of a silver sage. The interior on the right is really beautiful, showing what other colors you could use with it. But again, those are our yarns at the bottom that our designers just received to start using. Contract has color trends as well. They have deep saturated colors. They're not as bright as they have been typically. Their neutrals are much warmer. They've got a really beautiful new cream color with some depth, mid-tone chameleon neutrals, blonde wood inspired tones, and then this gold to rust. So this really pretty geometric in the middle kind of shows that range. On the greens, they're also very similar. They've got deep, rich emerald greens, grayed out greens, soft greens, and sage to mint. And their citron green, which has been very, very bright, is moving more towards olive. And at the bottom, you can see it paired with some of the new rusts and teals that they've launched. And then on the blue side, it's still also one of their top selling colors. They use dark navy as a neutral versus black. And they really love the dress here. It's just got a little bit of red to it. And then they've mixed it. They like seeing it mixed with navies, olives, sages, and even a little bit of navy tinted with lavender. So just to sort of wrap up who we are, we talked a little bit about the design area, the dyeing, the finishing, the yarn, the weaving, all the testing we do. And then we've got a new marketing area that's really starting to do a lot of work with a new brand called Inside Out. So we have our first e-commerce website. So that's brand new for us, and it's kicked off about a year ago and doing quite well. And then just to close, I thought I would share with you some resources if you're interested. The first one is just our website address where you can learn about our company. Inside Out is our new brand, consumer brand or e-commerce brand. ITA or International Textiles Alliance.org. They put on these shows. Some of you may have entered some of their student contests before. NeoCon obviously is a large show in Chicago that we attend, and it's a great resource for looking at contract places to work. High Point Market would be the residential side of that. And then I added with it up here, they have a huge student section. They offer scholarships, probably 30 a year. They have an endowment for that. And then they have a great mentoring program. So if you're really interested in home furnishings, I'd highly recommend that you hop on their website and take a look. So that's it.
Laura, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. We do have a number of questions that I'm just going to go ahead and start working through. So, and to both you and to Amanda, how is the work of the design team or the designers, how is that organized or structured? Because you shared that there's about 35 full-time people on the team. So is it by market, by end use? What does that look like?
I can answer that. Laura did all that presentation work. So we are divided into two groups, contract and residential. So those, the projects, the special, we call them special requests that come in by customer, those are directed like by brand, depending on who's requesting it, and the end use. You know, if it's for a hotel, then it's going to contract. And if it's a like Cheryl or Hickory Chair, some furniture customers, then it goes to residential. And then everybody has different, you know, things they're good at. And so we learn that, and then we're like, well, they're more of a colorist. This project's going to go to them. This person's really good at creating art and working with a layout if the project is more about coming up with a new pattern. So we kind of prioritize and divvy out work like that. And so that's part of like my job, is helping divvy out the works, because it is, you know, everybody has different strengths. So but ultimately it comes down to residential versus contract, and then it kind of, you know, filters out from there.
And we do have some folks that work in our CAD area. So within that 35, we have probably 5 that are in that area. And then we have several consultants that also work with us that weren't listed.
That's fascinating. So are the designers who design for residential always separate from those who design for contract? Do they sometimes switch roles? How does that happen?
Yeah, they especially when you first start, if you're out fresh out of school, you're just we're trying to figure out what works for you and where you fit. Sometimes your portfolio can kind of indicate, we can see like that hand lends this way or that way. But like when I first came, I did a little bit of both. I helped both groups, and then you kind of fall into what's your comfort area. And there are still some designers, here and there, if there's special projects that would help out another group, but typically we find where you're comfortable and then you stay, because it's different components and different warps, and so it just is, you get in a comfort spot and it's easier to work in one area and test results. Like, they look different. You think about what you sit on at a restaurant, it's super tight and highly picked, and compared to what's in your house, they're different, and so your mind starts to get used to that look.
Interesting. On one of the very last slides, there was the comment about design being collaborative. And what I know from our students is that's one of the things that they very much enjoy in school, is that collaborative nature. And granted, this last year has been a little challenging because of COVID, but could you talk about what does that look like? What does collaboration look like for designers at Valdese Weavers?
There's several layers. I would say the first layer is working within a team among your peers and with your design managers. And so that's a group that you can ask questions to. Everybody's got a real open door as far as that goes. And then you have manufacturing. So you have to work with them to get things woven, to discuss why it didn't weave, why it didn't test well, why it might be delayed. And then there's the whole sales and customer part, which is another area. And Amanda, if you want to talk about that collaboration.
Yeah, that for both contract and residential, working with sales and our customers is a big deal. And I think it's what makes Valdese stand out from a lot of other mills, because we will change by color, change a pattern, we'll tweak any of our existing patterns depending on the order for customers. So a lot of times that's another part of my job is talking directly to the customer, including sales. So you're collaborating with all of them to hear exactly what they want, to understand what their needs are. And, money always is an issue. Like what one of Laura's slides was, the first thing is price. And ultimately, getting a fabric that they like at the price that they can pay is a number one, I think, thing. And so working together to get the look at the price. So that's what I love about textile design, and I'm sure you guys feel the same way. It's not only about the surface, the beauty, but there's the huge technical aspect of it and experimenting. So we're collaborating with lots of different people to get what they want.
And a typical meeting could be, Amanda just had one where she was working with a retailer, Living Spaces in California. So she was on a call, there was a sales rep on the call, and there was a marketing person on the call, and they probably had 3 people on the call. So they're anywhere from 6 to 8 people, and she's dealing directly with designers at West Elm or designers at Pottery Barn, trying to problem solve these fabrics. And that's kind of new for us. We think that it's going to be the key to our success, quite frankly. We can't just make what we want and hope someone buys it. We've got to sort of bring it to fruition and really kind of take hold of our own destiny. And it's great for designers. And not everybody wants to do it. Not everybody wants to be on those high profile calls. But a lot of them are, a lot of folks find that sort of a real exciting part of their job. But you're dealing with people that don't know textile design. So you have to sort of change your mind and switch it down. I think I showed a few of the words like plush or dry or shiny, where we're dealing with cotton and 22 rayon and
Yeah.
real technical terms, you can't use it in that environment. So it's kind of, you have to unlearn a little bit too at the same time. So it's a challenge.
I can appreciate that challenge that exists with translating the language, because truly we speak different languages.
Very much so. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Here's a question for both of you. Our students often use WGSN for color direction and forecasting. What are your favorite resources for color forecasting? And are there different sources for home and contract, for residential and contract?
We have had a subscription to WGSN, and Laura had mentioned Fashion Snoops. We've kind of gone back and forth. We like both of them. I can't remember which one's our active one right now, but we like them both, and we agree that WGSN is a great resource. We pull from, I'm speaking more residential because that's where I've spent the bulk of my experience. We do look at a lot of fashion and shelter magazines. And also now, you know, like Crate and Barrel West Elm, the catalogs that you get, you know, those catalogs are much more fun to look at than what's online. I feel like their online just never supports what's in the actual catalog. I still love getting the catalog. But Anthropologie, like those kind of more trend forward people or companies, we look at that, but we know as in furniture, we have to temper it a little bit, you know, just because acid yellow is a great accent. We can't do it that as a, but we add it in as pop. So we get it from, you know, we look at a lot and then filter it down and try to water it down. But I don't know if Laura has anything to add to that.
Yeah, on the contract side, they use shelter magazines also, like interior design or interiors, I think is the name of it. They also look at European shows, so they'll follow that closely. The healthcare market would have trends, as well as the hotel and office environments. A lot of that is also changing. We are seeing things kind of come a little closer together. And then if you look at interiors like Google's Office or some of those Office, if you Google some of that, Facebook, you're going to see some really different looking interiors. And so that a lot of that is what they use. And then just forecasting, Color Marketing Group, Pantone. You kind of have to scan all of it. And then we sort of see where we're starting to see duplication. And that's sort of what we start paying attention to, as well as charting our own trends. That's a great question.
At Showtime, we probably push the envelope a little bit more to show what we can do, but then what actually sells like on that chart is definitely toned down. But we always, because we are very decorative and as designers, we love the color. So we like to wow with some, even though it may not be purchased, but we love looking at it.
There are so many follow-up questions here, but so I'm going to pick one sort of at random that I think is a brilliant question. Are there any design trends for interior textiles that you wish would come back, or trends that you hope to never see again? I love that question.
Oh, wow.
I grew up in the business with hunter green, burgundy, and navy blue tapestries. So I'm happy for that to never come back. Because I think I had to learn how to do tapestry weaves with that construction and those colors. And it was not the most pleasant experience that I've ever had. And you're confined to the warp colors. So, but from a trend perspective, that's one I never want to see. I do love these soft neutrals, soft colors used as neutrals. I think those are really beautiful. I love calming environments. I think with the pandemic going on, people just want a nice, relaxing home life. And a lot of people are working from home. So it's fascinating to watch how things are just sort of softening a little bit. And Amanda, I'm not sure you're.
Well, I was going to say, I love the Kelly Wearstler palettes. And it's that soft kind of sun-baked look, you know, but bright, not totally all bland. I really like her palettes. I love color. I'm one of those, I always have color on, but the trend I do not want to see again. And when I first started, which was in 02, 03, 04, was brown and spa. It was everywhere. And at that point I was like, oh, what a great idea. That's so, and now I can't, I don't want to go back to at least those two together.
I think there's something to be said for if you've lived through a trend the first time, you don't necessarily want to live through it the next time.
Exactly.
Yep.
I see Jen agrees with me.
Yeah. How far out do you typically work? So the fabrics that your designers are working on now, when will those fabrics go to market?
Right now we are finishing up with what will be shown at, well, things have changed with all of the pandemic, but we have pre-market the end of April. Showtime is now before market in May, which is never happens, and then market is in June. Normally it's pre-market, market, showtime, but it's been switched around. So we're gonna show what we show for pre-market's gonna stay up for us, hopefully. So I would say we work 6 months out from what people are gonna see. I mean, so we do twice a year, so we start working, but we're finishing, like, all pattern development is done. We're now coloring and weaving for what is going to be hung. So we're not as far ahead as like fashion. We're not talking about next year at all. But the retailers, what we show to our furniture people will not be on their floors for a year, if that makes sense. So for us, it's really fast turnaround, but for the public, it's, wouldn't you say, Laura, like a year out?
I think so. And contracts even longer. Contract will be, they are usually a 9-month development cycle to get it purchased by a customer, and then it gets on the streets to the interior designers probably another year later. So they're probably 2 to 3 years out, and home furnishings is, now if it's a special for, we've done it, we've woven in 24 hours, and we had a really fast Pottery Barn exercise recently. So the beauty of having a mill is we can answer things really fast, but normally it's 1 to 3 years.
And so those kinds of specials, like you just mentioned with Pottery Barn, are those oh wow moments or oh no moments for you?
I would say, oh wow, but yeah, a lot of times you're like, it's a lot, but
yeah, we had restoration. We had an opportunity come in, and we had a week to create 130 fabrics because we had 7 different collections we were pitching, and then we had to get it out to California overnight, which is not easily done these days with shipping. So and then we had to put a trend PowerPoint together to sell from because we're not traveling. So that one was not so much an oh wow. I think we're going to get 1 fabric out of it, but that fabric will stay in the line for probably 10 years and it'll just keep running. So it is worth it. But luckily we've got all the different areas that can come together and do it really quickly. But it's different. But
yeah, the Our House project that you mentioned was kind of the same way. Like they got really, it was slow. They got really excited about it, and then they wanted everything to be turned around because they're putting it in the catalog for March, and we were our hands were tied with yarn, that special warp yarn coming overseas, and so we don't have control over every detail, and so we're just kind of doing our best. But we are a large team, as you can see, and we all make it work.
So with that said, with these sorts of specials, this leads into one of the questions that we've been asked, which is, you've mentioned working on up to 40 designs at once. That seems very intense, but also very fun. Do you experience high and low seasons, or are the deadlines spread out across the year?
I would say we have less high and low now. It's more kind of spread out through the year, through the day, through the month, through the week. But I read that question, so I was thinking about that. You don't get 40 all in one day, so there's 40 all in different stages, thankfully. So you have where you're starting the CAD, and then some are in this part. So you're kind of working on a bunch of them all at the same time. And then some, once they're out to weave, you're on pause. So you're doing some other stuff. So it's luckily not, all at the same stage on the same day. So you're not totally overwhelmed, although that does happen. And you can walk into projects from customers, like Laura mentioned, some quick turnaround things that weren't on your to-do list for the day, but you have to make them work. And luckily it's fabric. It's not, medical equipment or something super important. So,
But I will say time management is a great skill to have walking into the industry, because you have to learn how to
great point.
juggle your time. And if you have 8 different blankets to write, you've got to make sure you watch your time, because the warp's going in tomorrow. You've got to get it in today. So there's a lot of self-management with our design team too. And our software gives you kind of a to-do list every day. It shows you where everything is and what needs to be moved on to the next step. So there's a little bit of automation that helps you, but that's why you see so many swatches on the wall, because we're all visual and we just have to see it move along. So you'll see stickers on some and stars on others. And we do a lot of manual parts as well.
I agree. The time management, I think, of everything is super key. And being able to know, and being a team and collaborate and know, like, at what point, even though you want to get everything entered for this one step, sometimes you need to do 3 and then get to the next, like, so it's a flow, so you don't get a bottleneck. And so learning all of that, that's something that you learn on the job, but learning time management and practicing it while you're in college is a very crucial skill.
Excellent points. So that leads into what I think might be the final questions we'll have time for today, which are, what do you look for in a designer? And are you hiring interns or full-time employees? If so, how do interested people reach out?
So we have signed up for the interview process, which is
so for
March.
Design Expo, virtual Design Expo.
In
Correct.
March, right?
Yep.
Great.
So we're going to be there, and we'll add days if we need to. And we do like to bring in interns. Our area is a little small. We're not an urban area. We are an hour from Asheville, an hour from Charlotte. But we do have interns. We've also created a virtual internship this year just to answer some of the travel concerns. So we can share that as well. That's more project-based than like a length of time. And we're happy to talk through that. And then you're welcome to send out both of our email addresses. We're happy to work one-on-one with people, sort of getting to that point. We don't have any openings today, but we may. We have, when people go on maternity leave, we never know if they're coming back. So, and we can't ask them till they're finished their leave. But we've got one out and one going out. So that is to be determined. But we definitely are approaching the summer and have been trying to work with folks and offer some internships. And Amanda, what was the first part?
The first part was, what do you look for in a designer, in a textile designer?
I would say when we're looking at portfolios, obviously when we've looked at Thomas Jefferson and Philly, you like portfolios, there's a great a breadth of work, which is awesome. I think use of color, if it's print, like layout ability, because you don't need to be a great drawer or sketch artist or artist in general, because we start with art. You don't have to just conjure up ideas in your head, which is good, but being able to take an idea, put it into a great layout, a repeat, and balance of color, and so you can see these like visual things, and I think in portfolios, and being like, a creative eye, a different way of thinking of things.
We also like to see the process. So if you're creating a garment or you're creating a print, we love to see where your idea came from and what sketching you might have done to get there, where your color inspiration came from.
That's great.
Anything you can talk about your process, because it's such everything we do is on a computer, and we really need to sort of vet that out on the front end, because you can do anything. The computer will allow you to do anything, but we want to make sure you've got the ideas and the creativity, and that you can pull it from inspiration to something that we can actually sell.
Great point.
And
Well,
then communication, we're a, you know, we think we're a small group. I'm not sure how we fare in the industry, but you know, we do work with a lot of pressure, but we all get along really well. We all help each other with whoever needs what. The sales reps have a different temperament, and we work really well with them as well. So it's a lot of it's a fit, and just getting into the area, seeing where we are, because it's a little bit of a rural environment, but having a mill at your back door is incredible, because I hear them every day when I walk in, and it's wonderful to be able to just open a door and see 150 machines weaving your fabrics. It's quite exciting.
Mm-hmm. I was gonna say with Laura, like, you know, meeting somebody and you don't know everything about them, but you know, knowing that we are a team and like Laura said, communication and teamwork and kind of always being open to help, that is, you know, a huge benefit to, you know, be here on this team. Like having those attributes are very important.
And following up to interviews, I think follow-up shows us that you are motivated, you're passionate, and we have to follow up on all of our projects. So it's just a great skill to have. It's sort of a lost art, I think, a little bit, but especially since everything's virtual. But anyway, we're happy to help. We're happy to look at portfolios. We're happy to help talk through opportunities, because we know it's a little difficult with not much travel right now. But
and a car is important here in Hickory, just to
we don't have mass transportation.
Yeah, and so we've come across that before, and so unfortunately, I mean, luckily with Laura said the virtual internship is a possibility, but we can, you know, housing is, we can help with that, but you have to have a car to intern here, unfortunately. Yeah, like there's like 2 buses and they, you know, don't stop here. So
well, thank you for all of those
Absolutely.
So to both Laura and Amanda, we very much appreciate your brilliant presentation today. Very inspiring. We're super excited for our students, and really I'm thrilled that you are going to participate in Design Expo. That's amazing. So from all of us, thank you.
thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good day and stay safe.
Thanks.